Hi folks, welcome back. We're today at the Veterans Digital Hall. Dave Eling with the Muskegon County Department of Veterans Affairs, and Wes Spyke is sitting here with me today, and he's the pastor. And we were just we grew up together in the projects, and we were just kind of relating life experiences and what happens to so many vets. and Wes was talking about some of his personal experiences, how he got to where he was. And then in between the break there, we were just discussing a little bit about there are so many vets. It's so sad, and we're talking, what, 75, about 35 or 40 years after the fact now. There are so many veterans out here in our own community, and we see them in the support group and whatever else, that just haven't come home yet, or they haven't gotten back. And you alluded to the part that you met Lil later on in your life, and she was the person for you to accept who you were and help you unravel what was going on with yourself. And then you made that turn where you say, okay, there's these things here. So what do we do for these individuals that? And I know you're out there. They're out there.
Oh, absolutely.
So we meet them every single day. Every time we hook up with somebody, we run into another vet that they just pour out to you, and they say, and we say, brother, we've been there, we've done that. Well, how did you get past this? And I think that's the thing that so many vets are looking for.
Absolutely.
And I guess it's not a magic key, but what?
It's not a magic bullet. I think a lot of times veterans, like anything else, whether we're dealing with drugs or alcohol or sexual addiction or gambling or whatever, you got to want to try and get out of there.
I want to stop this merry-go-round.
You want to stop this merry-go-round. It needs to be said too, Dave. I didn't go through just one marriage. I was married once before as well. So anyone to think, well, gee, this guy's got pie in the sky, and that never happened to him, so he doesn't know. Well, I've been there, done that. Been around the block a few times, and for me, trying to get a handle on all this, and I'm thinking, what changed? What changed? And I think you hit upon it earlier in the discussion, where here in America, as little kids, we're raised for years that killing is wrong, that theft is wrong, that adultery is wrong. Where did all these laws come from? Well, they're the laws of the land. Yeah, but where did they come from? As you start looking, even our judicial system is based on Judeo-Christian principles, whether they want to realize it or not.
Or admit to it now. We try to,
yeah, exactly.
Put space between, take that word off of there, and don't say that word over here.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to offend somebody.
Sure. All that business.
What got us here originally was that.
That's exactly right. This is what got us here. And as far as I'm concerned, they can take all that political correct business, and just throw that in the garbage can, because we're not dealing with reality here. So, particularly when it deals with spiritual issues. And I've got to say, Dave, that my experience with the church, by and large, they're interested in giving warm fuzzies as opposed to addressing what we would call controversial issues.
Yeah.
Well, it's not controversial to God. God does address these issues. And so for me, I needed that type of spiritual discipline in my life. And take for issue I know there's a lot of vets out there that are dealing with issues that they've seen. These are the things that I've seen. When you're on the other side of that coin, and you're the veteran that created those issues, it's different seeing, life being taken. But when you have taken it, and you know that you have taken it, it's one thing to hose an enemy from a boat, with a .50 caliber. It's another thing to
eye
to eye and shoot someone in what we would consider cold blood today. And then they separate this by saying, well, this is war. Nonetheless, 43 years later, I still deal with that same issue of taking human life.
Because we were taught.
We were taught that it is wrong.
Yeah, you do not do this.
And, yeah, exactly. Even though biblically it says that you're to follow your leadership in the defense of your country, and you can back that up scripturally. And so a lot of these veterans, at least for me, and if there are any veterans out there that are dealing with this same issue, you need to understand too is that when you come to a relationship with Jesus Christ and you have committed yourself to under his care and under his forgiveness and all that business. And I remember a pastor coming to me before I had gotten into this, I was a Christian. I've been a Christian like for 20 years, and he came to me and he says, I see this potential in you and all this other business. You bring questions up that I can't even answer, and I've got a doctorate in all of this business. And he says, why is it that you're not stepping out, that you're not serving in the Christian community and all that business? And I looked at him and I said, do you have any idea what I've done in my life? And he said, well, I knew that you were in the Vietnam War. He says, I know that. I said, do you have any idea what I've done in there? And he said to me, he says, that really doesn't matter. And I looked at him, Dave, and I said, what? Why? And he said to me, he says, I've known you for a long time. He said, you made a commitment to Christ. He said, he says, was that something that was false, or did you really believe that you, in some communities they call it saved, in some communities they call it having a relationship with Christ. Another denomination may call it confirmed, or whatever you call it, but it's still a relationship with Christ. And I said, well, yeah, you know I did that. I did it about 20 years ago. He says, well, there's one question I want to ask you. And I said, well, what's that? And he says, what is it that you don't understand about forgiveness? And Dave, I'm telling you, you could have hit me in the head with a 4x4. Yeah, that's happened before. Yeah, exactly. But I could have had a V8. So
that was a defining.
But that was a defining moment, and I said, well, what? He said, I know what that means. He says, well, here's the thing. He said, if the most powerful spiritual being in the universe can forgive you, why can't you forgive yourself? He says, are you better than he? And I thought, man, I've been dealing with this. Where you been 20 years ago? So it's kind of he said, you have to understand too. He said, the God of the universe loved you so much that he gave his son for the atonement or for the forgiveness of your sins. And I thought, gosh, does that mean even killing people? And he says, it means for everything, if you meant it.
Yeah.
So that was a defining moment in my life when I thought, I don't have to beat myself up with this.
Every day.
Now, it doesn't mean that I don't think about this, Dave. It's not that, because when you have taken human life, you will remember it for the rest of your life. And I can tell you, in my mind's eye, I can see that those moments now. However, do I have someone that I can go to? The guilt at times is something that you can lay at the foot of the cross, even though you will continue to beat yourself up, not so badly, not so much.
Heals a little bit.
Anyway, it heals a little bit more, and every time you think about it, heals a little bit more. And I find that with veterans, there are wounds that are still open, dealing with that and what they've seen and all that business. And so from my standpoint, I said we have to put pressure on that. We have to stop the wound, stop the bleeding before the healing process can begin.
We talked about this many times, is that if you had that same wound, physical wound, any place on your body, you lost a hand, a finger, anything gone, or you would say, okay, this is acceptable. Society's going to accept me. Oh, what happened to your arm there? Oh, I lost it more. Oh, man, sorry. But when they look and you have these wounds in your head, in your soul or your spiritual, whoever you are, I mean, that wound is there. No doctor is going to get in there and put a Band-Aid on that or patch that or make it better.
No, they can't.
And that's the frustrating part, I think, for so many vets was, who's going to fix this? I mean, this doctor over here can do all these other things, but who's going to fix this? And I think if they've never had spirituality or they didn't know what to go do, sometimes they just go to look. Who's got an answer for me? Like this guy standing up and talking to you and saying,
sure,
think about this. Wow. If you're able to do that, and I think that's part of what you and Lil's ministry is.
Yes.
And it is ministry, because Wes goes out and he'll sit down and talk to the vets, and a vet will always tell you, if you're not a vet, I'm not really going to talk to you because you don't get it.
Oh, yeah.
This is a guy that's been there, done it, walked in those moccasins, and there's not a thing that you can say or did, basically, that this man has experience. And many vets are like that. As we talk among groups to each other, we feel comfortable there because, you know what, you're not judging me and I'm not judging you because we both, we got it. And you know, how we rationalize that or whatever else, we try to come for that. But there's always that monkey on your back or your shoulders, you're saying something is not right with this. And
absolutely.
I think that's the niche or the part that in the treatment and the recovery and the psychological recovery of an individual who's been exposed to the ravages of war or you know, near-death experience or whatever the case may be, is that you have to grapple with that and come. And then this is just another treatment. You know, religion may not be for you. You may not be ready yet. You may not believe at all. It doesn't matter. But many out there, as we were raised, you know, you pledge allegiance to the flag when you were a kid, in English all the way through, and
exactly.
and you were told these things. You know, you don't do this, you don't do that. These are consequences. And then as a young teenager, to be thrown into that, a young man, and then come back home. Now we have young women come home, same thing.
Yes, absolutely.
And then left to grapple with that. And oftentimes you turn to clergy. You go back to your church, and your church is not prepared to handle the war aspect. There's no running. Broken marriage because you were messing around, okay, or you're drinking problem, yeah. War related, I don't know how I'm going to get to that turf or how I'm going to handle it. I'm not equipped. And so you say, well, what are you here for then? What are you here for then? You have to take another break or do it? Okay, but my man back here telling us the number. So we're going to take a little quick break. Please stay tuned. We'll be back just a few minutes.